Hello, and welcome to the Radiant Mission podcast. My name is Rebecca Toomey, and we are on a mission to encourage and inspire you as you're navigating through this life and with your relationship with Christ. We have been in a series on being countercultural, and last week you heard from Jessica Avila, and she started to share her testimony and her experiences with the supernatural. Today, we are here for part 2 of that session, and she's really going to get into it even deeper. And I am going to try my best to even share some video and audio footage that she provided to me. So be sure to check this out on YouTube if you want to see the video. Let's get into it. All right, so this is my first time ever adding video with audio externally to one of our shows. So please bear with me. It's not going to be as clean as most shows, but I'm going to pop this up here. This is video footage that Jessica sent me, video and audio from her home that she lived in at the time. She mentioned last time, and then again, we're going to talk about it this time, her hearing this lion roaring. So here is clip number 1. It sounds a little warbly and whatnot, but let's listen again. And this is not the... Did you hear that? That was a very lion sounding roar, and it gets even more so. Okay, here's another one. Like, literally sounds like a lion roaring. Now, this video is interesting. It has a lot of the little orbs that she was talking about seeing, just things floating around in the camera. And what I find interesting is her little cat or dog is laying on the floor and almost seems bothered by what is going on around him or her. It's kind of like looking around and then gets up, jumps. Yeah, and it's like, I'm out of here. There's nothing there. So that's very interesting. And this is what she mentioned last episode, that people said, oh, it's just dust on the camera or whatnot. But I find it interesting the way that her little pet was reacting to this. Seems uncomfortable with this. And you can see there's things floating around there. All right, now there's another footage of this. I mean, it's like coming down in this one. There's lots that you can see here. It's a lot of things floating around, and it almost lights up some of it, seems. Just a lot of activity happening on this camera on this evening. So super interesting footage. And then this just goes along with Jessica's story. And, she was feeling these entities and feeling these attacks during this time. So wanted to share this again, not something that we have done on this show, but here it is. Very, very, very interesting stuff. Curious to know anybody's thoughts. If you've experienced this before, something similar, let us know. We're going to jump into part 2.
That's another thing too. And I forgot to share something positive before, because I get in my head with this. Because like I said, this is the first time I'm sharing this. And, it's tough. It's not an easy thing to talk about. I have not shared this with a lot of people that like, people are going to hear this and be like, wow. Because I disappeared off social media for a minute. Like it made me literally like kind of
He was getting his way because he wanted you to be insular. He wanted to isolate you from people. That's how the enemy beats people.
Yes.
That's how he
But
wins, is he gets you alone,
yeah,
scares the crap out of you, tortures you. And then for a lot of people, they start to have suicidal ideation
yeah,
and go down that path.
yeah. Like the guy from Lincoln Park,
Yeah, sure.
the lead singer. I mean, he's openly talked about how he had like all these, he couldn't shut his brain off, like intrusive thoughts, and then
Mm,
he committed suicide. But like that's, I think it was important for me to share this, and then I'll tell you what I missed, what I forgot to tell you.
sure.
It was important for me to share this to kind of get over my fear, plus
Mm,
to talk about it because that's what's happening. And like, I'm not a doctor, but 1 + 1 = 2. Who knows these prescription drugs that we're all given, like what they're doing to our bodies, what they're doing to us. And that's becoming the excuse is us as humans labeling everything because we think we know it all, labeling everything. And then you're looking where you shouldn't be looking, which is to God. You know,
mm.
it's and I think he got away with it for a while with me, but then it was, exposed to me very drastically. But after I
That's
had
a
seen,
that's a great point though. I'd love for you to press on that for a second
yeah,
on the pharmaceutical drug point. So you at some point stopped taking Adderall, like you said, right? And you
yeah.
also stopped taking your seizure medication.
Yeah, and I also stopped with like the partying, like going out and
Hmm.
drinking and taking stuff that was given to me. I
Sure.
stopped that. Yes, I stopped my seizure medicine, but prior to me doing that Daniel's fast, and I don't know if that was it or if it was just God healing me
Hmm.
throughout the end of this attack because I've heard preachers say that after an attack there's usually a blessing. And that last attack, it was pretty scary and pretty severe.
Hmm.
And it's hard for me to talk about it, but I'm seizure free. I have no seizures. So prior to this, if I was off of my seizure medicine for like 2 or 3 days, the minute it was out of my system, I would go into a grand mal seizure
Wow.
all throughout my 20s. So this happens to me. I do the Daniel's fast. After I'm finished with the Daniel's fast, every time I would take my seizure medicine in the morning, I would get this like pressing, horrible headache. So then it prompted me to go to my neurologist. And my neurologist randomly is like, it was a new neurologist because the woman who was treating me before quit. And he was like, you're not even on a therapeutic dose of seizure medicine. I don't even think it's keeping your seizures at bay. And I looked at him like he was crazy because this is the first time anybody has ever said that to me. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, your brain scans have no seizure activity whatsoever, and your medicine is not high enough at this point to keep the seizures at bay. Stop taking the medicine. And I said, what?
Mm-hmm.
Because I was scared. Like, what if I stop and I go into a seizure and I'm driving? Because I was able to maintain my life with seizures,
Hmm.
and some people aren't. Mine were controlled by medicine, and I drove. I had a great career. I was able to function and live my life. It's gone.
Wow.
It was a pretty big miracle. I
That
remember
is,
coming from that doctor's appointment, crying to my husband and saying, "He healed me. God, God, Jesus, it
he
made me."
did. He did. That is amazing. I have been studying spiritual warfare quite a bit over the last 2 years.
Yeah,
And I recently heard that there is an association between, so I want to differentiate something first. I've talked on the podcast before about and use the words demonic oppression and
yeah,
demonic possession.
yeah,
And I've recently learned from someone who does deliverance ministry, she doesn't use those words, but she uses the word demonized, that we are being demonized, which I
okay,
find interesting. And there is some basis in the way that the words translate in the Bible, versus when we use words oppression or possession. So she just refers to it as being demonized.
yeah,
But she talks about the 12 strong men of basically, if you are going to categorize demons, they get categorized into 12 different types, and there are certain things that fall underneath them. And something that is catching my attention about your story are the seizures, because seizures are a specific health condition that she mentioned that people that are being demonized experience.
Oh, hmm,
And so it's fascinating that it was something that you experienced for near over a decade.
yeah,
And then as you got free from these demons, the seizures left you. It's almost as if that was a symptom of being demonized, of being attacked by the enemy. It's
yeah,
just very interesting, the correlation that my brain is like, whoa.
yeah. Well, I've heard the term because I've spoke to what's his name? He's a cop from New York, and he now is like a demonologist. It'll
Yeah.
come to me, but there's a
Yeah.
prominent NYPD Catholic police officer
Mm,
who now is retired, and it's him and his wife, and they go and they help people because he says he gets thousands of cases. Because I wanted someone to confirm what I was going through, and he said, "Well, it's an infestation what you're dealing with. It could be like what is like oppression, you
mhm,
know, it
mhm.
wasn't at that extent to where I was yet. But
Yeah.
you
Yeah, you were
know,
being attacked.
and hopefully that doesn't happen. But I
Mhm,
had like things move. My son, I want to say like before we left Staten Island, so we've been here a year. His toy like shot across the room like with nothing going on, and I prayed afterwards, in Jesus' name, anything that's here, I rebuke you. I would say St. Michael's prayer, things like that. But that's something else, that's where I'm at with everything, because I want to teach my son that this is real, and he's 5, so I don't know how to navigate that yet. I have to get some advice on that, because he literally said, "Mommy, my truck's moving." And I'm like, "It's okay, baby. Don't be scared," because there's nothing that pushed it, and it would happen every once in a while, and I would wake up in the middle of the night and I would smell like ammonia,
mhm.
something, or sulfur, something,
Oh.
unpleasant. And when it would happen, I knew at this point, now I was getting a foundation. I
Mhm,
realized there is no other way but Jesus. I can stop
mhm,
looking and stop trying to study or learn about Buddhism or this or that. I had stopped going to yoga because I did all of these things. When I tell you I did every single thing that we are being warned about now by people
mhm,
on the internet, I did it.
mhm,
And I have no idea what the door was, but I think closing anything is by
mhm.
stopping doing it. So now I realize
Sure,
it's wrong. Now I'm not doing it. Now I'm not
sure.
participating in it. And I want to make sure I raise my son where he has not a fear, like an understanding, because I didn't have that foundation.
Mhm,
So when all of this happened to me, I was like, what is going on?
mhm,
And I'll still every once in a while, like I'll get like an intrusive thought. I don't know if it's
mhm,
ever going to stop, and I don't know if he does this to everybody. I have no idea, but I'll still get a thought or an image where I know it's not me. It's like a
mhm,
flash,
mhm.
something like that's disturbing, because
Yeah.
I'm a good human being, so it disturbs me. You know what I'm saying? So I know, and that's where I'm at. We are going to church. We're trying to make God really a part of our life and part of this family, because now I'm at the point, like, I have experienced exactly what preachers talk about.
Mhm,
That, even like what's his name? Dan Rehill, that I watch all of his videos, that he's an exorcist and he's in Nashville, I believe. And he's talking about these experiences, and he describes it as what I've gone through,
mhm,
you know.
mhm.
And um, I think it was the hardest part for me was, like you said, the isolation and feeling like nobody around me is believing me. But
Yeah.
I believed in me and I believed in God. I hung on to, this is happening to me for a reason. I don't see it now, but like God's got a plan and he's going to protect me.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to go back to what you said about your son and children, because again, we don't have to overcomplicate it. And
Mhm.
I worried about that too with my daughter, which our children are about the same age. Brooke's just a little bit younger. And it's just prayer, girl. Simple prayer. We actually pray before we go to bed at night, because she did start to get a little bit scared at night before she would go to bed. Now, if I don't start praying immediately when the lights go off, she says, "Mommy, can you pray for me? Mommy, can you pray?" And the prayer doesn't have to be complicated, but I always like to start with gratitude. Lord, thank you for this day. Thank you for the blessings you've given us. Thank you for our home. Thank you for my beautiful children. We start with gratitude. And then as I get towards the end of the prayer, that's when I pray for protection. Lord, put a hedge of protection over my children, put the blood of Jesus over my children. And in doing these, in praying this way, she has learned to pray this way. And she always prays after I pray. And if Mike is there, he'll pray and I'll pray and then she prays. But she's so cute, little 4-year-old. And she will say, Lord, thank you for my brother and my sister and my mom and my dad. And, she'll say about the thing that she did that day. And Lord, protect me and put the blood of Jesus over my whole family. And she'll go, in every room of this whole house, if my mommy's downstairs or up
Aw.
here, wherever she is, put protection and the blood of Jesus over her. And it just warms my heart that first of all, she's 4 and knows how to pray. But I know it's just, you just do it with them and they learn and they
Yeah. My son
start to
thinks
understand and she
my
feels
son is
peace.
toys.
What's that?
He gives thanks for his toys. He always
Yeah.
tells me when it's cute. Yeah. And we read every night, the children's like a children's Bible.
Mhm.
And now he asks his dad, "Daddy, will you read me a story from the Bible? Will you read me my Bible?" And I love that.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. Do you think that your daughter has like an understanding that like or she's concerned with spirits? Because that's I'm just
I
curious.
do. I do. I think that
We don't
I
see.
I'm unsure if it's because she has seen things that have scared her, like
Okay.
Monsters Inc., which I specifically told my husband I did not want to allow her to watch. And then he did. Sorry to throw you under the bus, honey, but um and it introduced her to the concept of monsters. And that's why I didn't want her to watch it. Because once a child sees something and is introduced to a concept that they were foreign to before, didn't know. Now, obviously, I know everybody gets exposed to things at, whatever point in time in their life.
Yeah.
However, I have noticed that ever since she was introduced to the concept that there could be monsters in the closet or under the bed, she now has those fears at night where she'll say, something's under the bed or something is in the closet. And to me, obviously, I know that the monsters in a cartoon are fake.
Yeah.
What I know is that spiritual demons are real. And I'm going to use every tool to protect my child from that actual monster. Right.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of the lens that I'm going down. Now, whether she feels or senses a real demonic force, I don't know because again, she's 4, but I am assuming she does. And that is why I pray the way that I pray over her and rebuke and, loose and bind anything that's dark that's in here that should not be here. We bind it, and we send it to you, Jesus, to do what you need to do. So I'm not sure, but I'm gonna use the tools that I have been given
I got it.
from, from the Bible and also from just studying deliverance ministry and studying, you know, being demonized and us being demonized to protect her. And like I said,
It's tough.
I don't
That it's
know.
I'm at that I struggle with because how do you want to tread lightly because I mean, my son's 5 and like what do you say? And I'm
Mhm,
going to get advice from my pastor about it, how to navigate because I don't want him to be scared, but I also want to
mhm.
disinvite whatever's here like you have to leave. You know what I'm saying? And I want him
Yep.
to be comfortable with that because I mean, I was stunned, like shock and awe when all of these things happened to me. And after the
Mhm.
last time that it happened, I had post traumatic stress. Like I'm not going to sit here and be like, "Oh, I'm so tough. This didn't rattle my cage." I mean, it does because
Scary.
yeah, because you got, we have Jesus. You know what I mean? So he's
Mhm.
already lost. You know what I'm saying? But when you're going through that, it's hard because you see me and I don't see you. Like you have the upper hand. You know what I'm saying? And you can, make me feel certain emotions, or I would, feel wind blowing through, or get a flash of an image of something that wasn't true, like to, like to push you into a direction. Like all of, like when you hear like priests that are exorcists, or pastors that do deliverance, I'm not really familiar with that,
Mhm.
um talk about the things that these spirits are able to manifest and do to you. They can play with your emotions. And if they're watching you to see how you react to certain situations, or if you're in an argument with your husband, that stinks. And I'm trying to, I want to be polite about it. Like that, that's intrusive,
Mhm. Mhm.
and you have all this knowledge on me that you can wield, as long as
Yeah,
God gives you the authority to do it. You know what I'm saying? But,
sure.
it's like, it's not a fun feeling.
It's not. And I think the key here is awareness, right? And that's why we wanted to talk about it together, is to make other people aware that this is around us, because this and the enemy hates God's creation. He hates what God has created. And that is humans, that is families,
Mhm.
marriages. So he's going to attack those things, positive relationships. So whenever there is discord, between, let's say, myself and my husband, or things going on with the kids, or just being run down, things too overwhelming with work, those are the times where we have to be more vigilant
Yeah.
and more cautious and more aware of what is going on in the spiritual world around us, because if we've got other stuff going on and we have open doorways for them to enter and to access into us. And now that's the other thing, is we have the choice whether to allow or not allow, according to his word, is what I'm, how I'm perceiving this. And I think that that's kind of what you have pointed to too, to say, I was living in sin. Like I was doing all of the things of the world. So
Yeah.
I had these doorways open. But I have also noticed that when trying to seek him, attack can come as well. So it's not so easy to say, like, just be perfect and good and you'll never have a problem. That's not how it works. I wish
No,
it did. I
I
wish,
wish it was too. I
but
tried. I'm not going to
we
sit and
do
lie.
have the whole
I tried.
we do have the Holy Spirit with us to guide us and protect us during those times. And honestly, I just think that we need to just become spiritual warriors and
Yeah.
have, put on his armor like he tells us to, not have the fear. And that's the thing that I always try to pass on to my daughter, is she thinks that I'm afraid of nothing, because that's what I tell her. Mommy's not afraid of anything, nothing. And that's the kind of force that we have to have against darkness.
Yeah.
And when I've heard different deliverance folks talk about casting out demons, for example, they'll say, you don't say, please, go away. It's like, get out. I
Yeah.
rebuke you.
Yeah.
You don't belong here.
But
There's
you have this
authority behind it.
foundation.
What's that?
You have this great foundation. Like you have the tools, you know what I'm saying? You know what to
I
do.
don't. And that's the thing I want to pass along, is I grew up in the church and I even did not understand or know about this stuff either until I went through it myself. And I
Mhm.
think that's how God wakes us up, girl. Just
Yeah.
like he woke you up.
He drop kick. Drop kick. I don't even know how else to drop kick. And like that's why at the end of the day, you know, that's how it had to be done. And because I
Yeah.
I didn't even have the foundation, and he was still with me, and he didn't let, you know, anything happen to my
Yep.
son, and all of these things. And I'm very grateful for that. But
Mhm.
there are a lot of people out there that are suffering. I can imagine it, that are
Mhm.
being tortured psychologically, because that's what it was like. If I could equate it to anything, if you think of, like, I wouldn't wish this on my worst enemy. It was
Mhm.
unrelenting. He doesn't get tired. Whether it was him himself, which I don't know, but it was still malevolent. Still
Mhm.
part of kingdom of darkness. It was unrelenting nonstop, whether if it was in one form, whether it was mental, whether it was being woken up, it consisted. And I'm sure there are other people going through it. If I talk
Absolutely.
to these professionals and priests, and they say that they get thousands of emails, thousands from people, and they don't know what to do. Nobody
Mhm.
knows, like, they don't know how to handle this, because I didn't,
Mhm.
and I was
Mhm.
there. I
Mhm.
still, I pray, um, I rebuke things, but
Mhm.
I still have like experiences, like a toy will go off and I just go, oh, I'm not in the mood. Like, you know what
Well,
I mean?
I've got a list of books a mile long for you. I don't know if you saw my recent reel, but I tagged a bunch of them. They definitely are helpful. I think that for myself. So I want to just be clear to everybody. This is not something that I won't claim to be an expert on or fully understand. I am coming into understanding of this concept and spiritual warfare myself over the past couple of years. But the Lord is guiding. And that's, I think, the key here is we ask him, lead me on down whatever path you want for me. And
Yeah,
everyone's path is
I'm
going to
not
be
in
different,
control. I'm not in
right?
control of this. I'm
Lead
not.
me down a path and he will
Yes.
open these resources.
Yeah.
I think someone listening to this episode is an example of a road he's leading somebody down that needs to hear this right now. And for you, he's leading you down your path to understanding of this too. Just like for me, going down, picking up all these books, feeling inclined to order these books in the first place. My
Yeah.
husband makes fun of me so bad when
Maybe one.
another demon book, you got to be careful with this stuff. It almost is weird to him. But now what's interesting is he's been teasing me for months. And lately, he's the one that's like, hey, check this video out or check this out or did you hear this? And so he's starting to now pick up on this stuff and truly understand it too. But I actually had a guest on maybe 2 months ago or so who invited me to take this class on spiritual warfare where I learned about being demonized. And it's just another step in the process, right? It's just another door that's opening to understanding these concepts. And so that's what I would, advice I would give to anybody that's listening is ask the Lord to guide your steps and he will. He always does. He always
Yeah.
has for me.
Got a plan.
I went from having a hospital birth to having a baby by myself in my bathroom.
I think
Like,
it's amazing, and I so respect you for that because I always wanted to have a water birth. My son was 11 pounds, and they were like, "No," and I had to have a C-section, and I never even went into labor. Like, I was like 41
mm,
weeks. That's what they told me pregnant. But I think it's amazing that you do that. If I get blessed with another child, I would love to do that because I was like upset that I didn't get to feel labor pains. It's like, that, and I feel
yeah,
like
yes.
it's a stepping stone for a woman. Like, you go through this, you endure it, you're a warrior, you come out of it. And I was like really upset about it. And I think it's great that you do this. And this whole experience, to me, I see God. There's been
Mhm,
horrors, you know, really
mhm.
scary, traumatizing stuff that has happened, but I still see God and that he was with me and he got me through it. And now I'm like, I'm like fixated. Like, I want to learn about this. I want to learn about the Bible because I feel like I'm the person that's breaking the generation, like the
There you go.
generational, they call it.
Yes,
Because
yes.
my son's gonna know, don't touch tarot cards. The zodiac is a bunch of crap, And I'm gonna, when he's old enough, I will share these stories with him when he can handle it.
Mhm,
But you know, I'm gonna teach him, like, you're baptized, you're raised, Christian, Catholic, a combo, because my husband was raised evangelical. So, like, when I
okay.
went to one of his churches for the first time, I was like, "Ooh, rock and roll! Like, this is different, this is so upbeat." I wasn't used to it, but you know, the foundation. I want my son to know, like, okay, you don't do these things just because the world is saying that this is okay. You don't do it.
Mhm,
You don't play with a
mhm,
Ouija board. You just don't do it. And even with these things, like, I got older and I realized, like, there was certain things. I was always curious. I always believed in ghosts and spirits and stuff like that. Halloween was my favorite holiday, like
mm,
my favorite. And
yeah,
now I don't want to participate in it. There's just things, since my view has changed, that I take a step back and I look at the world and it's like right there in your face,
yeah.
and you're just so desensitized to it. And when you don't believe, because I've had religious people literally like doubt what I was going through. And then I had one priest come to my house after the last time that I was attacked, and he was like saying St. Michael's prayer with another priest, because I had played him the audio of the crowd that I had, and I was like shaking in the church. And he came to my house. He was saying St. Michael's prayer, and all of a sudden, like, my phone starts ringing and like there's all this noise. My son's, little, he's making noise. And I was like, well, something doesn't doesn't want this or whatever it is. And it solidified my faith, because there's so many avenues that you can go. And because of these experiences and it being like what other people talk about that are Christian, that's it. There's no other way. Jesus is God. And this is real. And unfortunately, our world, we think we know it all. And
Mhm.
we give people medicine for everything and medicine
Mhm.
for all these things that we label. Is it really? Is
Yep.
schizophrenia really a you thing? Is it something, is it a chemical imbalance? Or, are you being demonically attacked or influenced? And, I'm not on any
Yeah.
medicine and I'm fine, except for, certain toys and things moving like that. And like that, there's no prescription for that. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? So like,
You are bringing up such a great point. I want to actually shout out another podcast real quick. There is a podcast called The Confessionals, and episode number 655 is called Following the Voices. And it shook me in a good way. Well, it can be kind of freaky for some people, but the episode is about this. I don't know if he's a psychiatrist or psychologist, whatever the
yeah,
technical his whatever his licensing is. His name was Jerry Marzinski, and he was working with schizophrenic patients specifically, since you're mentioning schizophrenia again. And he did not intend to really find out what he found out. He was just visiting with schizophrenic patients. He worked in a hospital setting and a prison setting
yeah,
with schizophrenia, right? And what he discovered was that the true nature of the voices that people were experiencing were demons. It was
wow,
spiritual.
wow,
And he goes into talking about the influence of pharmaceutical companies and how they, in some cases, it's like they make it worse or they mute it temporarily,
like the
but
Band-Aid.
that at the end of the day, this is a spiritual battle. And it wasn't something that he was never looking for that, but it was over 15 years of visiting with people that he
Yeah,
realized it. And he had a very real physical experience with a demonic entity one time that reminds me a lot of your story, where he was with this patient in the room, and this entity scratched up the wall, up the ceiling, and then fell down into the trash can. And you couldn't see anything, but he could hear it
yeah,
moving. And the
yeah.
patient was almost like so numb to it because he had been hearing and experiencing being demonized for so long, he didn't even look up. And the Jerry was
Because
like,
he was just not paying attention to it because he's so used to having to function that he was just not even.
he knew it was there, but he just wasn't responding. And Jerry was totally freaked out. The guy ends up, leaving, and he kind of left kind of abruptly. He didn't see him again. I don't know if it was maybe for a month. And I'm probably botching this story, so I definitely recommend people listen to it. The next time he saw this guy, he said something like, why did you leave so abruptly? And he said, the voice told me to go back and get a shank, a weapon to kill you, to stab you. And so I just left and left the situation. And it was like the closer that Jerry was getting to figuring these things out, because he was asking questions about it. And that's why it was freaking out. He was asking questions about the entities. He referred to them, I believe, as parasites during that episode, which was like a really interesting light bulb moment for me, the connection between parasites and entities and demons. And, that's not something that we talk about in America, our
No,
parasites.
supposedly they're like a swarm. I've heard somebody's
Mm,
a person that I guess deals with this say that they're like it's like a swarm because they always refer to themselves as we or multiple. I didn't have
sure.
it didn't get that. It didn't get like as bad as that. Like when I was going through it, like telling me, to do anything. But I also didn't listen.
Mhm. Mhm.
I would just pray, or I would lay and I would cry to God, please, make this stop,
Yeah.
and I'm
It was
not
like
dis
you knew enough to know that it was something else, right?
yes, I knew it in my, like, my soul that this isn't me. I couldn't be convinced that it was me. And then if it was telling me, like, steal, if I was in, like, CVS buying something, I would take it, steal it, blah blah blah, blah. I wouldn't give in to that. I
Mhm.
resisted. I wouldn't
Mhm.
give into it. Then I would go home and my bed would shake or something crazy, and I would run to my
Oh.
dad, "Dad, something's shaking my bed," and he'd look at me and be like, "What?" Like, have you ever seen the movie It?
No, I don't watch scary movies. No
Okay.
way.
Okay. This was before this. You remember special effects artists, right? So,
Yeah.
the kids, they're fighting this clown, but the clown is, a demon masquerading as
Mm.
something to scare them. And all the parents in the town are like looking at the kids are like, you don't see the blood, you don't see this, you don't see that. And they're like, no, like, what are you talking about? Like, completely blinded.
Mhm.
That was like my experience. That, everybody that was close to me was just, it was just me, God, and whatever this was. And I think that more people need to speak out. That's why i'm
Mhm.
i'm doing this. I didn't want to relive, like, all of this, because it's like, but I feel
It's a lot.
better about
Good.
it. But
Good.
I think that more people need to talk about it, to shed light on it, because if this is part of the enemy's plan, like, to get us all doped up on drugs that cause all these side effects and poison us, meanwhile he's the culprit, it
Yep.
needs to become more normalized, because right now in society it's not. And you have
Yep.
people like Tucker Carlson. I just saw him come out and say that he was attacked. He
Mm.
had scratch marks. Something made him bleed, and it
Mhm.
sent him on while he was sleeping. He woke up, scratch marks, blood all over the sheets, and he realized, I wasn't dreaming. Like, something just
Mhm.
scratched me. And he went on a year-long journey of reading the Bible. You got people like Kat Von D, getting rid of all of her witchcraft books and all of her stuff and coming out. You're starting
Amen
to
for
see
that.
people that, yeah, starting to see people that have a following, that are prevalent, with social media. They have millions of people, and they're talking about this stuff.
Yeah.
And, like, thank
It's
God,
awesome. Yes.
because there's definitely, there's a lot of people that are going through something in some way, and God is in control of
Absolutely.
all of it.
Yeah.
But, you know, to recognize that it's not a
Absolutely.
joke.
I want to touch on the movie thing for a minute, real quick, and just like the picture of these horror movies. Honestly, even the movies that are about exorcisms or that
Those crazy.
are kind of have this tone to it. Someone is creating these movies. Someone is coming up with the plot. Someone is coming up with a script. Someone is coming up with this stuff. Where do you think that people come up with this stuff from? And from what resource or from what influence is it from? You know what I'm saying? Like
They're from true stories. A
that's
lot of them, the Emily Rose one, that really happened to the
that's
girl
the
in Germany. Mhm.
yeah, and that's the thing that we should be really also considering in this is what forces are behind some of this stuff. I know obviously some of the stuff that's really super scary, like you said, are based on true stories of things that have happened to people. But others of it, we don't know the torment that other humans are experiencing spiritually that would influence or cause them to want to make a movie about it that is, quote, entertainment,
Mhm.
but it's really a reflection of their own spiritual torture that they are going through.
Could be, yeah.
And, I've always, this is something that I
Or it's a
really
way
am great.
to surprise us too, to make you
Mhm.
not think it's real because it's a movie, it's fake.
I'm grateful to my mom because she was always very much of the mentality of like, be careful what little eyes, what you see, be
Oh,
careful little ears, what you hear type of thing. Cause she knew that once you saw, you couldn't unsee it. And so I was never like, she wouldn't let us watch scary movies or anything like that. And I'm grateful to her because it wasn't something that I sought out. And then when I was old enough, I just had a bad feeling about some of that stuff and like discernment to stay away from it. Now, I would say my sister probably watched a lot more scary stuff than I did, but then she also had a lot more nightmares and problems
I heard
because of
your
it.
sister is the reason that I, like, had a sigh of relief, and I called you up that day rambling on the phone telling you my whole what was going on, just because it made me feel like, oh, I'm not alone.
Yep.
And like I said, I've heard so many girls intrusive thought after they gave birth, and
Mm-hmm.
depression or this or that. I mean,
Yep. He's
so
after us. He is after us. And like you said, especially mothers that are in vulnerable positions, about to give birth, just gave birth, he's going to come for us because we are down a bit. We are easier for him to get to us and manipulate us. And, I have my own theories on the current medical system and the way that they induce women and push us into labor or push us into C-sections or whatever. And I really do feel like it's an enemy attack on separating us from our babies. And we can recover from it. Brooke was a C-section baby too. And it was a very hard thing to go into it thinking I was going to have this natural birth and then not. We have to come to terms with that.
yep.
But there's redemption, right? There's always something to learn and something to get. So anyway, I so have loved talking with you, and I hope that you feel good about talking about this, even though it was really scary. I know how scary it was, and I appreciate you. So thank you for sharing with us today.
Thanks
And
for having me.
anything else that you wanted to pass along to listeners?
Just, I don't know, use your gut, your soul. I feel like God will guide you. And if anybody is going through something that is similar to my situation, seek counsel, seek help. Don't quit. God is with you. He will guide you to solutions, to answers, or even get you through it, because there's something probably to learn from it. Like for me, I grew from this experience, even though it's hard to talk about the negative. Um, there was a lot of good. Like, I didn't tell you that after I had seen that shadow, I had went to try to get some rest in like another parking lot at
Mm,
a church. And there was a
mhm,
homeless man there, and he was from Florida. Ironically, we were both from Florida. And he asked me if I had eaten. And I was like, no, I haven't eaten anything. I didn't even know how long it was since I had eaten. And he went into his bag and he took out a whole sleeve of crackers and gave them to me. And I remember being so touched, because I was experiencing all of this drama, all of this chaos, all of
mm,
this harshness from my own family. And this homeless person who had nothing, nothing,
mm.
gave me food, gave me whatever he had. And then he handed me a King James Bible and said, here, maybe this will help you along your journey. And I took it, and I still have it. And in my head and my heart today, I believe that that was an angel and that was an act of God. You
Mm,
know, God will work and move in everything, and he will use whatever you're suffering with, whatever you're going through, and turn it out and make it positive. And I believe that wholeheartedly.
oh,
100%, you
oh,
know? And Jesus is the way, the truth, the light, and he loves us. He does love us, and he works in each of our lives differently. And I believe that,
absolutely.
because I needed a shake up, and my life and the plan that God had for me up until this point has been beautiful. It's been wonderful. My little family, I'm so thankful for.
Mm, I love that. Thank you so much, Jessica. Thank you for joining me and for sharing your story.
Thanks.
Awesome. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in and being on this journey with us. If you would like to follow along outside the podcast, you can join the mission on Instagram or Facebook at The Radiant Mission. And if you want to watch this in video format, you can find us on YouTube. Today, we're going to close with Psalm 91, which so funny that this is the verse that you shared with me, because in that podcast episode, I mentioned about the hearing the voices or following the voices. Well, one of the things that Jerry said was that the demons hated Psalm 91, and that was one passage that could be used to quiet the voices. So wild that you shared this with me, and you put in there that you've been scared at times, and it reminds you that God is with you and that he will protect you. and that He's your strength in the darkness, and that's I'm the way, the truth, and the life, and no one comes to the Father except through me. And we are wishing you a radiant week. We'll see you next time. Bye, everyone.